Talk English Vault.
Learn English with podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Talk English Vault, the podcast that helps you speak English naturally, fluently, and with real confidence. I'm Luna.
And I'm Rex. And today, I have to say, today's topic is one of my absolute favorites. Because it's not just about English, it's about something deeply human.
That's right. Today we are talking about storytelling in simple English. How to tell a story clearly, naturally, and engagingly, even if you're still learning.
Because here's something that might surprise you. The best storytellers in the world are not always the ones with the biggest vocabulary or the most complex sentences.
The best storytellers are the ones who make you feel something, who take you somewhere, who make you lean in and think, what happens next?
And you can absolutely do that in simple English. In fact, simple English told well is far more powerful than complicated English told poorly.
So today, we're going to show you exactly how. We'll cover why storytelling matters for English learners, the key ingredients of a great story, the language and phrases you need, and we'll tell some actual stories together so you can hear it all in action.
This is going to be a really special episode, so get comfortable and let's begin.
Rex, let's start with the big why. Why should English learners focus on storytelling specifically?
Great place to start. So think about this. Almost every real English conversation involves some form of storytelling. Someone asks how your weekend was. You tell a story. Someone asks how you met your best friend. You tell a story. A job interviewer asks about a challenge you overcame. You tell a story.
Stories are literally everywhere in conversation. It's not an advanced skill, it's a fundamental one.
Exactly. And for English learners specifically, storytelling does something really magical. It makes grammar feel natural. When you're telling a story, you naturally use past tenses, time expressions, descriptive words, connectors. All the things that feel difficult when you study them in isolation suddenly just flow.
That's such a good point. Nobody thinks about grammar when they're excited to tell someone what happened to them today. The story takes over.
And there's another huge benefit. Storytelling builds memory. Research actually shows that we remember information up to 22 times better when it's delivered as a story compared to just facts.
22 times. So if you want people to remember your English, tell them a story. If you want to remember new vocabulary, put it inside a story. Stories stick.
And finally, storytelling builds connection. When you share a story, even a simple one, people feel like they know you. That emotional connection is what makes conversations meaningful and memorable.
So, storytelling is not a luxury skill. It is a core human communication skill, and learning to do it in English will transform the way you connect with people.
Perfectly said. Now, let's look at what actually makes a great story.
Okay, so every great story, no matter how simple or complex, has 5 key ingredients. Think of these like a recipe. Miss one, and the story feels flat. Get them all right, and your story comes alive.
I love a good recipe. Hit us with it, Luna.
Ingredient number 1, a character. Every story needs someone at the center. It could be you, a friend, a stranger you met, even an animal. The character is the heart of the story. They're who we follow and who we care about.
In simple English, you introduce your character quickly and clearly. My friend Sarah. There was this man on the bus. When I was a kid. Simple, clear, and immediately we know who the story is about.
Ingredient number 2, a setting. Where and when does the story happen? The setting creates atmosphere. It puts your listener inside the world of the story.
Again, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It was a rainy Tuesday morning. We were in the middle of a busy market. It happened on my first day at work. Just a sentence or two paints the picture.
Ingredient number 3, a problem or challenge. This is what makes a story interesting. Without a problem, there's no story. Something has to happen, go wrong, create tension, or present a challenge.
Think about every great story you've ever heard. Something always goes wrong, or at least something unexpected happens. That moment of tension is what makes you want to keep listening.
Ingredient number 4, a reaction or action. What does the character do when faced with the problem? How do they feel? How do they respond? This is where emotion and personality come in, and it's often the most memorable part of any story.
And ingredient number 5, a resolution or lesson. How does it end? What was the outcome? What did the character, or you, learn from it? A good ending gives the listener a sense of satisfaction or meaning.
Character, setting, problem, reaction, resolution. 5 ingredients. That's all you need to build any story in English, simple or sophisticated.
Now, let's look at the language, the words and phrases that make storytelling flow.
This is the section English learners often find most useful because it gives you the actual words and phrases you need to tell stories naturally.
We're going to go through 4 categories of storytelling language. Ready?
Ready.
Category 1, starting a story. These are the phrases you use to signal that a story is coming. They invite people in. So, this actually happened to me last week. You're not going to believe this, but I have to tell you about the time This is a funny story. Okay, so let me tell you what happened when I'll never forget the day that.
These openers are powerful because they create immediate curiosity. The listener's brain goes, "Ooh, what happened?" And you have them hooked before the story even begins.
Category 2, sequencing the story. These are the time and order words that keep your story moving forward clearly. First of all, then, after that, suddenly, a moment later, meanwhile, eventually, in the end, by the time I got there.
These little words are the glue of storytelling. They guide your listener through time so they always know where they are in the story.
Category 3, adding emotion and drama. This is what separates a flat story from a gripping one. I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely terrified. My heart was racing. I froze completely. I burst out laughing. I felt this wave of relief. For a moment, everything went quiet. I thought to myself, this can't be happening.
These emotional phrases are incredibly powerful, and they're not complicated English at all, but they make the listener feel the story, not just hear it.
And category 4, ending a story. These are the phrases you use to land the story, to give it closure and meaning. And that was the moment I realized. Looking back, I think the lesson was, it turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me. I still think about that day. And honestly, I'd do it all over again. That's something I'll never forget.
A strong ending is what makes a story stick in someone's memory long after the conversation ends.
Now, the best way to learn all of this is to actually hear it in action. So, Rex, let's tell some real stories.
Yes! This is the part I've been looking forward to. We're going to tell 3 short stories, all in simple English, using everything we just covered.
The first story is an everyday story, the kind you'd tell a friend. The second is a personal challenge story, the kind you might share in an interview. And the third is a funny story, because laughter is a language everyone speaks.
And after each story, we'll break down what made it work. Ready?
Let's go.
So this happened to me just last month. I was on my way to an important meeting, one of the most important of my career, actually. I'd been preparing for weeks. I had my notes, my presentation, everything ready. I jumped on the metro, found a seat, and started going over my notes one last time. Then suddenly, the train stopped, right in the middle of the tunnel. No announcement, no explanation, just silence. I could feel my heart rate going up.
The meeting was in 45 minutes. I started doing the maths in my head, and it wasn't looking good. 5 minutes passed, then 10. People around me were getting restless. Then finally, an announcement. There was a technical fault. We'd be delayed for at least 20 minutes. At that moment, I had a choice: panic or adapt. I took a deep breath, opened my phone, and sent my client a message explaining the situation. Honestly, they were completely understanding. By the time I arrived, 15 minutes late, my client greeted me with a cup of coffee and said, "Don't worry, these things happen." And you know what? The meeting went brilliantly. I learned something important that day. Most things we worry about never turn out as bad as we imagined.
Okay, I love that story. Let's break it down quickly.
The character was clear. Me, the narrator. The setting was immediate. The metro, the tunnel. The problem was specific. Stuck on a train before a crucial meeting.
The reaction showed emotion. I could feel my heart rate going up. And a decision, panic or adapt. And the resolution had a beautiful lesson at the end.
And notice, the vocabulary was completely simple, nothing complex, but the story felt vivid and real because of the structure and the emotion.
I want to tell you about the first time I had to speak in public, in English. It was during my second year of university. My professor asked our class to give a 5-minute presentation on any topic we chose. 5 minutes. That's nothing, right? Wrong. For me, a non-native English speaker in a room full of fluent speakers, 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. I practiced every single night for 2 weeks in front of my mirror, on voice recordings I immediately deleted. I knew my content inside out. But the fear of my accent, of forgetting a word, of people not understanding me, that fear was enormous. The day came, I stood up, my hands were shaking slightly, and then I just began. Something shifted about 30 seconds in. The words started coming. My classmates were listening, really listening. Some of them were nodding. One girl smiled at something I said. When I finished, there was applause. Real applause. Afterwards, my professor said something I never forgot. She said, "Your clarity and passion made this the most engaging presentation of the day." Not the most perfect, not the most fluent, the most engaging. That day changed how I see myself as a speaker, and it taught me that courage, not perfection, is what connects you to an audience.
Luna, that was genuinely moving.
Thank you. And notice how that story works perfectly for a job interview question like, "Tell me about a challenge you overcame." It has all 5 ingredients, and it shows character, growth, and self-awareness.
A few years ago, I was visiting a foreign country for the first time. My language skills were, let's say, basic. Very basic. I walked into a small restaurant for lunch. The waiter came over and started speaking quickly in the local language. I didn't understand a word. So I did what many of us do in that situation. I smiled confidently and said, "Yes." He nodded and walked away. I sat there feeling quite pleased with myself. Look at me, communicating internationally. About 10 minutes later, the waiter came back with 4 other waiters, and they were all carrying chairs. Turns out, I had agreed to give up my table for a large group booking. I was escorted, very politely, to a tiny table in the corner next to the kitchen door. Every time someone walked in or out, the door swung open and hit the back of my chair. I ate my entire meal like that. Bump. Soup spoon. Bump. Bread roll. Bump. Main course. But here's the thing. I laughed the entire time,
And those waiters laughed with me. And I learned the most important lesson of language learning. When in doubt, do not just say yes.
I did not know this story, and I love it.
Every word is true. And notice, that story used simple English, but the humor came from timing, from specific details, the chair being bumped, the soup spoon, and from a relatable situation.
Anyone who has ever tried to communicate in a foreign language relates to that story immediately. That's the power of specificity and honesty in storytelling. All right, before we get to our challenge, let's lock in our top storytelling tips.
Tip 1. Be specific, not vague. Don't say, "We went somewhere nice." Say, "We found this tiny cafe tucked down a side street, the kind of place with mismatched chairs and homemade cake on the counter." Specific details bring stories to life.
Tip 2. Use short sentences for impact. When something dramatic happens in your story, slow down. Use short sentences. I looked up, he was gone. Just like that. Short sentences create tension and rhythm.
Tip 3. Use your voice. Speed up when things get exciting. Slow down for the emotional moments. Pause before the punchline. Your voice is one of the most powerful storytelling tools you have.
Tip 4. Don't over-explain. Trust your listener. You don't need to explain every detail. Leave a little space for imagination. A story that respects its listener's intelligence is always more engaging.
Tip 5. Practice your stories. Think of 3 or 4 stories from your own life. A funny moment, a challenge, a happy memory, a lesson learned. Know them well. Practice telling them. These become your personal story bank, ready whenever you need them.
And tip 6, start before you feel ready. Tell an imperfect story today, then a slightly better one tomorrow. Storytelling, like all language skills, improves with practice, not with waiting.
Okay, Talk English Vault family, here is your challenge for this week, and it's a good one.
We want you to write or record a short story in English. It can be just 1 minute long. Use the 5 ingredients: character, setting, problem, reaction, resolution. Use at least 3 of the storytelling phrases we shared today.
Your story can be funny, emotional, everyday, anything. It just has to be yours, something real that happened to you.
Then, share it in the YouTube comments below. We want to read your stories, and we promise we will comment back on as many as we can.
Because your stories matter. Your experiences in English, however simple, are worth telling, and this community will celebrate you for telling them.
If today's episode helped you, please give it a big thumbs up. It really helps our channel grow and reach more English learners around the world.
Subscribe to Talk English Vault and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. We release new content every week.
And share this episode with someone who loves stories or someone who needs help expressing themselves in English. You could be the spark that starts their journey.
Until next time, tell your stories.
Tell them simply, tell them bravely, and tell them in English. See you next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.